Now let's see how in practice we can insert and operate with Excel tables. So please open a file attached to the lecture, which is called Basic Table Example version 2. And here in the sheet master, we have a table of content. We present in this sheet the data on a company that has 3 different business units, so dentists, GP doctors, and others. And we have a table where we show for which year specific revenues are, and after that, what were the revenues, what was the percentage gross margin, and we would also like to calculate the gross margin. As you can see in the sheet range, we have standard range, so separate cells, and therefore the function we use here is based on the beginning and the end of the range. So we have a sum of revenues, in other words, all elements from the cell H7 to H21. Now, we can convert that into a table, and we have done it already in the sheet table. As you can see, it looks a bit different. So you've got this delicate blue frame around the table, and it may have this so-called banded look. So in other words, you have different colors of the rows. So one is kind of blue, and the other is kind of white. These things can be obviously changed. The other thing that suggests that this is a table is how we create the functions. So in K7, again, we try to sum the revenues. And as you can see, we do it in a bit different manner. So we have a sum, name of the table, in this case it's table 1. And afterwards, we've got which column we want revenues. So we've got revenues, because this is the name of the table where we've got the sales value. You can also identify the table by going to the name box, which is here on the left above the column names. And from here, if we select table 1, it will point you to the object which is behind this name. Now, we will try to do exactly this in the sheet practice. In other words, we will try to convert data, which are currently a bunch of cells, in other words, arranged, into a proper table. There are 2 ways to do that. So first of all, we have to select the area which is supposed to become the table. And then the first option is to go above to the upper menu, pick Tab Insert, and then we've got Table. He will ask you whether in the table we've got headers or not. By headers, we mean the name of columns. In our case, we've got, so we don't uncheck it. We leave it the way it is, and we press OK. And there you've got the table. Now, the other option generates exactly the same result, but it's a bit faster. So you simply press Ctrl and then T, and we get exactly the same information. Now, the table has certain characteristics that make it a little bit better for certain purposes, and I'm going to show you just some of them. So first of all, it expands automatically. So if I add year 6, and then let's say dentists, and I add revenues, you'll see that the table has expanded, and also any functions based on that will expand as well. And this is a great feature of the table. Here we added a new data point, a row. However, it will also expand if I add a new column. So in column J, let's try to calculate the gross margin expressed as an absolute value. We've got revenues and percentage gross margin. So we want to multiply those 2 things to get to the gross margin in absolute value. So we press equal, then I point him to the cell H7, which is the revenue for dentist year 1. As you can see, he has this funny way of defining it. Then we press multiply and we point him to the percentage gross margin. If you press OK, he will copy automatically the formula for all the records. The funny thing is that even if I add new element here, so let's say others, year 6, he will automatically expand the calculations. And as you can see, I didn't have to copy the formula. We'll discuss the functions later, but one comment why he uses this sort of a weird way of putting it. So he simply shows from which column he should take the data. So revenues are taken from sheet revenues and percentage gross margin from percentage gross margin. And this @ sign means that he takes the elements from the same row in which he is currently. So since we are in row 7, he will take data from revenues in row 7 and then the gross margin in row 7. As you can see, if we go to row 8, we have exactly the same formula, but he takes the data from row 8.